Tom, great to see you. And thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat. Always appreciate that because I know you're busy. I want to kick off, Tom, with something that you said to me when we were chatting last week, and it stuck in my mind because I think it will resonate with other people. You said traditional lead generation is dead. I
Mhm.
think a lot of other people would agree with that, actually. But I mean, just tell us what you mean. When you say it's dead, what does that mean? Why is it dead? And what's your thoughts about what people should perhaps be doing differently? I mean, we can get into the detail of the
Yeah.
business that you're in a second, but
No, I think it's a term that you see thrown around a lot, around, especially around cold calling and the traditional methods. But I think the challenge I find is, and I've found this for a few years, was why I founded Trueleads, was that the traditional methods of just literally smashing the phones, cold calling, trying to get hold of your prospects is dying out. Like that is going to become a thing of the past. Like there is a certain decision makers and people that is the only way to get hold of them. But as time progresses, those decision makers don't want to be contacted on
why
a
is
call.
that happening, Tom? Because I agree with you, right? But what I don't understand is why. What suddenly changed?
I think it's you look now at like my generation in millennials, we're now the decision makers. We're the people that are getting promoted into those sort of roles. And to be honest with you, I hardly even answer my phone. I want to be contacted digitally. I want to do my research. I want to understand who I'm speaking to. I don't mind speaking to people. Absolutely love it. I love my sales guy, through and through. But I want to make sure that schedule some time and speak to them when I'm ready. I don't want to be called out of the blue from some stranger
Yeah.
that presume thinks I have a problem, which I don't. So I think that's what's changed. People are more protective of their time. They're more protective of who they want to speak to, and I think I'm not opposed to speaking to people, but I want to do it at the right time on my terms when I've done some research and when I'm ready to buy or when there's something I want to learn about. So I think that's what's changed, and I think that's the buyer's behavior is changing, and that's going to increase over time as buyers are getting more educated on what the market is.
Yeah, and when you put it like that, I mean, it sounds very reasonable, actually. I mean, I would want to protect my time. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an interesting way of thinking about it, actually. Let me ask you this then. If that is the case, that conventional lead gen is dead, I mean, I don't want to get into the detail just yet, but in broad terms, what should people do instead?
Well, I'm a firm believer, and this was before I even founded True Leads, of the authentic self in terms of being yourself. That's what changed it for me in sales. Like when I was trying to emulate everybody else and trying to do the same, it didn't work. As soon as I started being Tom and started being myself, it worked. In terms of building those relationships, in terms of building my personal brand on LinkedIn, connecting with people on LinkedIn, and having that human to human connection. And yes, occasionally we may need to do a few calls, etc., but we lead with that side of things. So I think any sales professional, any founder, anybody that's looking to do business needs to start building their personal brand on LinkedIn and at least sharing some content and engage with their audience because you've got a live database of over a billion people that are there that are ready to communicate with. So why wouldn't you try and get yourself in front of those people on a regular basis? That's my theory anyway.
Okay, and okay, let's just talk about what you're trying to do because you've got a slightly different take on you know sales. So, what is it you're trying to achieve? I mean, what's the mission of True Leads? What is it you're trying to do, and why is it different to the stuff that other people are trying to do?
Yeah, so I had a lot of thought of this. Like when True Leads was founded, it was to help people. It was founded in lockdown, and it was like, how can I help people that I know in my network get the right leads and connections? And at the time, as you remember, it's 6 years ago now, but the events were being cancelled. People were scared. People didn't, the traditional ways of having an event, running a webinar were sort of dying. It's like, what do we do now? So I started helping people like, how can I help you get leads on LinkedIn? How can I help you build your following? And it went from there. And I still think that resonates today. So my mission is to help people. It's to help those sales professionals and those founders that they might not be the best in their league. They're certainly not the worst salespeople, but they're the sort of people that may be doing 80, 90% of the target each year. They're not quite hitting President's Club every year. They're not quite, earning the big commission checks they were thinking they were going to earn. But they're the people with a little bit of help, with the right conversations, the right leads, the right timing. You can help them be a top player. They're the people I want to help the most.
And is that about simply about connecting kind of sellers and buyers, or
Mhm.
is that about, if you like, helping sellers learn better sales technique? Because the other thing that strikes me about the digitization of the sales process is that it requires a different, I mean, my view is it requires a slightly different set of skills. I mean, what's
Yeah.
your take on those issues?
Very, very true. And that's probably one of our major challenges in the fact that we can help, we help our clients, build their ideal customer persona, like in terms of identifying the right customers. We can then build them the right messages to send to those individuals, like help them connect with them on LinkedIn, maybe set up some email campaigns, engage with them in a digital fashion before calling them. But you're totally right. They do, when they get a response from that prospect, it then requires a bit of education on how to handle that, especially on LinkedIn. It's a much different approach to if you're emailing them or calling them, for example. On a call, you have the ability to be flexible, handle negotiations and progress that, which is great. On LinkedIn, it's a much more casual, sort of personal touch that you need to take. And that is something that we try and teach our customers and help them with, or try and do it for them if they want to. But that is something that is it's a different approach they need to take because it is a different skill that's required to do
And,
that.
and when you say it's, and I know I don't want to get into the micro detail of this, but when you say it's a different approach when you're engaging with people on LinkedIn, I mean, why is it different? I mean, why is it different to a phone conversation or an email exchange? I mean, just give us a flavour of
Yeah,
why it needs to be different on LinkedIn.
I
I mean, I
think
agree with you, but I just think it'd be interesting to
I,
explain.
I, I'm not. Yeah, I think a sales call or a cold call can be very, very effective because it is very direct. You can ask
Yeah,
questions and you can qualify really, really quickly. The difference between that and social selling's my view, it's like going to a networking event. So if you went to an event tomorrow, you would go and say, "Hey, these are the top 20 people I want to introduce myself to." You would try and go and speak to them. You'd introduce yourself. You would introduce yourself as Paul. You'd tell them maybe a little bit about what you do, ask them a few questions, but you wouldn't go for the full sales pitch and
right.
try and book a meeting. You would introduce yourself. But the next time you meet them, you might progress that a bit further. So I think LinkedIn is, if you look at it as a sort of digital networking event, you're sharing a bit about
Right.
yourself, you're connecting, you're asking a few questions. That's it. That's about the level you want to go. You don't want to be using it to sell to the prospect. You want to use it to sort of set the scene, show them what you can do, show them how you've helped other customers, and then when they're ready, then you have the call or the meeting to progress that. So
And
I
let me
think of
ask
it
you,
as a
let me
live,
ask you about that last point because I think you that's the crux is when they're ready. I
yeah.
mean, that's a very important point that you made. How do you know when they're ready? I mean, that's how do you figure that out?
Yeah, so I think I did a blog on this last week, and one of the largest deals I ever closed came from a really early funnel lead that no other sales guy would have even come near. I think they downloaded the white paper. I've come back off holiday. I phoned him and said, "Hey, is this something of interest to you?" He said, "Yes, Tom, it is. Nobody else has called me." It progressed from there. It's really, he'd just shown a tiny level of intent. He looked at the website, downloaded a bit of information. It turned out they were looking at a whole refresh of their managed security services. They were building out an internal security team. It was a project for the year after. There was budget assigned. It was a board level discussion. And I got in there before all the competition because I would take in that slight level of intent. Yeah, looked at the website, downloaded a bit of information. There was a level of interest. So it was really early funnel, but it gave me the chance to then, one, engage with that customer before everybody else, and two, help sort of shape the requirements and introduce the team and build that project. So I think, especially in enterprise and mid-enterprise level sales, where you're dealing with bigger deals, you need to be patient and you need to make sure that you engage with that buyer at the start of the buying process before they're starting their full evaluation. So there's certain tools you can use, that there's tools and AI and things that you can identify what these signals are. It might be a website visit, it might be a download, it might be
Right.
a level of intent that shows that they're looking at the market, but they're not quite ready for a let's have a call, what's the budget, like that sort of conversation. But they are looking at information, they're looking at research, and you need to be there as a seller to educate them and to help them right at the start. And if you're not there, your competitors are going to be there. So our theory with Trueleads is to help you get to those buyers at the right times before they've started that process. So when they are looking at that project, you're front of mind and they come to you and not your competition.
Yeah. Just to come back to the point you made earlier on about buyers wanting to protect their time and make,
Mhm.
one of the other things I hear is that people are saying that the sales cycles are elongating. They're getting longer, particularly with enterprise. I mean,
Mhm.
what's your take on that? I mean, how do I mean, do you think that's the case that sales cycles are lengthening? I mean, what's your view of that? And to come back to your point about intervening early in the cycle, I mean, how do, how should people make judgments about that? What sort of things should people be thinking about?
Well, in terms of the sales cycle,
I mean, do you think it's
especially for
extending? Do you think it's getting
yeah,
long?
100%. Yeah, it definitely has. Especially in enterprise sales, buyers are more, like I said to you last week, they're more educated than ever. They've got more tools to sort of research the market, especially with AI. Like it's there's it's easier to evaluate tools and things. So there's going to be that whole process they need to go through. I think economically, people are a little bit more cautious with everything that's going on in the world. There's a little bit of
Yeah,
um,
uncertainty.
uncertainty, and people are looking at things in a little bit more detail. So that delays things, and there's more choice. I think especially when I was in cybersecurity, it was a fantastic market to be in. Like there's so many great vendors and solutions, and it's a growing market, but it's a very saturated market. There's a lot of competitors that do the same thing, so it's harder for a buyer to decide between vendor A and vendor B. What's the
Yeah,
difference, you know? So in my view, the difference can be that human touch, that getting early, and it was for me in that example of the deal. It was eventually there was a technical discussion and the credibility of the company I was working for, but it was ultimately because I got there before the competition. So I think, and the frustrating thing about sales, as you know, is all I'm saying here is great in theory that you take your time, you build those relationships, you engage with the clients early, but ultimately the sales guys that may be listening to this are thinking, I've got a target to hit here. I've got
yeah,
deals to get over the line. I'm getting pressure. They might not have 12 months to nurture this deal and get it to a stage it's closed, but that's the problem, I think. It's because you're right, the sales cycles are longer, but the sales guy needs to be around to be able to take advantage of that and then to build that relationship. But companies are moving so fast that they don't give the sales team time to do that.
yeah, yeah.
So it's a big challenge, I think. But if everyone could step back and think longer term, it'd be in a much better position.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's hard on individual salespeople, isn't it?
Massively,
I mean,
yeah.
I talk to a lot of them, and a lot of them people feel really pressured.
Yeah.
And as you said, but the clients are more defensive. Well, I was about to say defensive. They're more protective,
Yep.
so it's very difficult to make progress.
Yeah,
The way that
it's
you
a sort of
perhaps want.
snowball effect, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
you have the pressure, the reps got the pressure, and then they're trying harder, and then the client can see that from a mile off, can't they? And it creates friction. So, 100%. But that was a challenge when I was in cyber. You're working for a leading US startup, like a cyber vendor. They've just got funding, for example. They would need to hit the ground running and hit the market, and to do that they make a few mistakes along the way. But if they step back and just thought a bit longer term, built those relationships and built the trust, built the pipeline properly, they'd be in a much better position longer term. But that's a
yeah,
very difficult problem to fix.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. Let me ask you about you as the CEO. I mean, you've obviously building the business. I mean,
Mhm.
one of the things that interests me about the CEO's job, I mean, the CEO is the pivotal player in most businesses, and one of the interesting things about the job is that it's the job of the CEO to work out what you should do and shouldn't do.
Mhm.
We're going to go down that road rather than this road, which is very easy to say. It's much more difficult to do. I mean,
Mhm.
what's your take on how you cut, if you like, cut through the noise
Mhm.
and work out, well, there's all these things I could be doing. There's all these
Yeah.
stuff happening. How do I work out? How do you work out? I'm going to do this, not that. I mean, what's your take on kind of cutting through the noise?
Yeah, I think that's it's something that people don't tell you before you've found the business, but that's probably the
Yeah,
biggest challenge because there's so much opportunity and you get especially when you first start, you get very excited about what you can do and all the different possibilities, and then you're not focused on what is actually
yeah,
working and what's growing the business. So it's a difficult challenge, and especially now with the rise of AI, you don't want to get left behind. but at the same time, you want to work on what's really good and what's really working for you. So we've made many mistakes doing that. But one thing I do try and do now is obviously put a high level plan in place of like what we're doing. And then if we stick to something, we do that for at least a quarter. We get it going, we test that idea, and then we evaluate it before we change and chop and change. Where in the early days we didn't do that. It was like, this is working, great, this is a new idea, and you get very distracted and doing lots of different things. So I think that is the key to running any business and finding something that works and then build upon that one thing rather than trying to build lots of different things, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of doing less but doing it better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes you've almost got to make the business boring in the sense that you've got to find like the one offer, the one solution that works and just get it working for as many clients as you can and build that business rather than trying to build this shiny new thing that might look cool, might make you feel good, but actually over here's something that's really working. And that's been a big challenge with what we're doing, but I think we're on the right track now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting point you've just made there. I mean, I think good businesses are boring
Yeah,
because they're turning the handle on something that works, so they
yeah,
keep turning the handle. You know,
yeah.
that is the reality of a lot of
Exactly, yeah.
successful
And I
businesses.
think sometimes, especially in this market, lead gen, like AI, automation, it's changing at such a pace. And you're on LinkedIn, you're on the, going to these events and things. I think there is a sort of FOMO and you're missing out. Oh, we could be doing this, could be doing that. Whereas I think you look at the traditional businesses that just have do one thing really well and repeat that, and they're the ones that grow, significantly. So I think that is a danger of today's society and the fact that there is sometimes too much choice, isn't there? So,
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you about the kind of people you talked earlier on about the importance of the kind of human bit.
hmm
I mean, one of the other things that I think is interesting about the CEO role is that it's the CEO that builds the team.
hmm
And it's, again, very easy to say build a high performing team. A bit more difficult to do, isn't it? I mean, what's
yeah,
your take on the kind of process of getting the right people on the bus and also making sure that the wrong people get off the bus? I mean, what's
yeah.
your take on that? Those sorts of things.
Again, yeah, that's been a very, very hard lesson. I think it's one of those lessons in business that you have to do it to learn it, if you know what I mean. Like you could have all the theory in the world of how to build a team, but until you try and do it, you
Yeah,
don't know. So I
different
think
ball
that's
game, isn't it?
it's a different ball game. Yeah, exactly. And I think one thing I've been very blessed with is being able to attract good people to come and help with True Leads or work with me or like one thing I would recommend anybody that's doing with especially on LinkedIn etc. is never burn your bridges with people. Like keep those relationships. If you lose a job or leave a job, just keep the door open because so many of our clients and people that help came to help, with growing the business. So I was very blessed in that there was similar to the last question in the fact that there was lots of good people around that wanted to help, and in the early days could get very distracted by that. You'd have people that were trying to help that had great ideas, and you'd go down that route. Somebody else had an idea, you go down that route. So you could get very distracted and take you off of your own vision. But I think it's really clear to keep focused on what you want to do as the
Yeah,
CEO and the founder, the direction you want to go. And the lesson I've learned in the last couple of years is really, really defining exactly what the business needs. Because, for example, on the delivery side of the business, we've had, a few people come in and they've obviously got different skill sets to help with that, but it wasn't quite what the business needed at that time. They might have been, for example, really great at scaling a business from a certain revenue number, but we needed somebody that could help actually get in the weeds a little bit, build out some automations and more the growth stage type of the business. So I think in answer to your question, really sit down and evaluate what is it that you need, and do you have to hire somebody? Could you outsource that and try and get that one problem fixed, opposed to try and find somebody and think they're going to solve everything for you because that doesn't work in reality.
yeah. I mean, it's a very interesting point you've made because what you're saying is it's not just about the right person; it's about the right person for the stage that you're at. It's
Exactly.
the right person for where you're at.
Yeah.
Again, that's not just looking at them and saying, do you have the skills I need? Have you got the right personality? It's also about working out, well, have you got all those things for today? What about if that changes over a period of time? I mean, I've spoken to lots of CEOs who like to hang on to people. I've
Mhm.
also spoken to CEOs that said, well, they're right for a period and then they're maybe not right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
again, which is a difficult
Very
When you've
difficult.
built
Yeah.
relationships with staff and they've done a
Yeah.
good job, but they maybe don't fit. I mean, have you come
Ah,
across those
100%.
sorts of issues?
It's very, very difficult. And also to make it even more difficult in those early stages, when from founding a business, a lot of the people that you hire early on are people you know. They're old colleagues, they're maybe friends or family, and then eventually they're not, suitable for the business. So it's even a harder decision because you know them personally. But and that's been a very, very hard lesson to learn. But I think again, I think it's something you have to go through to learn it. But you have I've seen the example of when you hang on to somebody too long and it can actually damage the business. It damages it to the sense that the culture within the business is wrong. It can affect everybody else in the business. And also, again, it takes you off of your path and your vision because you're trying to accommodate them and their personality and what they're doing, etc. So I have learned over time that if that isn't right, you need to part ways as quickly as possible,
Yeah.
in a respectful way, but it's like ripping a plaster off. You need to get it done and move on and do what's right for the business. And I think that it's a very hard thing to do, but it's something, you need to do.
I mean, I also think if they're not right for the business, it's probably not right for them
No,
because they won't thrive actually if they're not
no, exactly.
if it's not
And
right.
I've seen it on the other side. I was made redundant, quite a few times in my career or let go, etc. And it always worked out for the best. It always led on to a better opportunity, something that's more suitable for me. It led on to me founding True Leads, etc. So I am a believer in that. And the people that have left, I've helped them find other roles, etc. And progress in other ways. It just, like you said, it was maybe part of the journey, but they're not part of the journey moving forward. So
Yeah.
things
And
change
that's right. No, they do. I mean,
and very
that
fast.
is the one thing that the one constant is change. It seems
Yeah,
like you can't avoid
exactly.
it, much
No.
as you might like to.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word culture.
Mhm.
I mean, tell me about how you sort of think about building the culture of your business. And what I'm kind of getting at is kind of culture in a remote working, remote client environment. We do so much digitally.
Mhm.
It's totally different to being in an office
Yeah.
with a bunch of people. I mean, you
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
might not be, but
Yeah.
it's a different thing, isn't it? In a
A
digital.
100%. I,
What's your thoughts on that?
it's a very, very big challenge, I think. And I was from the days of where you would go to the office every day
Yeah.
and I'd drive an hour and a half to Reading, go and sit at the desk, and you would have a culture. You'd have people on the phones, you would have a sales meeting, you'd go and have a coffee with people. It was that sort of culture, and that has sort of died out, hasn't it, since lockdown and things. So the business originally was built 100% purely digital. It's like this is pretty cool. I can work at home. It's gonna be digital. We then went through a sort of transition where we did have the office, the big fancy office, tried to get the team in, but people wanted that flexibility. So we've gone back to being more hybrid. We do have like a hub here in Oxford where people can meet, and we met yesterday actually with the team, but most of the time they're remote. But in terms of building a culture, that is very, very challenging. But the few things we do is obviously speak to each other regularly, like try and, as the CEO, try and set the culture, the missions, the values, which at the start I didn't really realize how important that was, but it's crucial. And in terms of like the mission you mentioned at the start, in terms of, we want to try and help those sales guys, the ambitious salespeople, thrive essentially. Getting that mission through to the team is quite a challenging thing to do. Otherwise, they're just sat there at home working a 9 to 5, just going through the motions. And I think that's something we're really trying to build into the team so they're part of the journey. But it's not easy, no, for sure.
Yeah. And on that, you mentioned values there, and you said how important that was. I mean, just explain what you mean by that. I mean, sales, I mean, the conventional view is that sales is a very kind of, go, go, go kind of world. I mean, the old, always be selling
Yeah,
always be closing, isn't it?
yeah,
Sorry, is
yeah,
the
yeah.
phrase, isn't it? That's still the kind of perception of sales
Mhm.
is that world. You're saying that there's other things though that are important. I mean, just explore that values piece for people. Just explain what that means in the
Yeah.
context of a
Well,
business about sales.
this does relate to the name True, right? I think
Right.
True is quite intentional in terms of the name, and the reason for that is when I was in sales and cybersecurity sales especially, I hated all that the BS that came with it in terms of the acronyms, the
Yeah, yeah,
ego, the fluff, the just I didn't like that. I like the real conversations with people. I'm quite down to earth type of guy. So I wanted to build True Leads to reflect those sort of values and try and teach people that you don't have to be like that. You don't have to go and be like the Wolf of Wall Street and go and bang down doors and be stressed and high pressure. And a lot of the time I was like that for sure. And it does work to an extent, but it's at the sort of detriment to your health and your well-being, and it's not the way to do it longer term. So wanted to give people a new perspective of sort of being yourself, being authentic, doing the right thing at the right time, and with that you get leads and conversations that come off the back of it, you know. And again, you're changing the whole perception of the industry, but you're totally right. That is the perception, isn't it? It's like hard hitting, fast, you know, always be closing, like that type of thing. And I've been in that environment and it's quite fun at times, but you can't sustain it forever, you know?
Yeah.
So with that, I wanted to build true leads. And the main thing is, you know, the trust, the honesty, like being authentic to ourselves and our customers. And I think the customers that have been with us and that are with us all relate to that, you know? So I'm quite a big believer of that, you know?
Yeah. Does it, I mean, to come back to the thing about getting the right people on the bus, does that kind of, do you find that the people that come to you for jobs are influenced by that perception? Do you get kind of the kind of pushy go-getters applying for jobs and do you have to say, no, this is not right? I mean,
Hmm.
how does that
Good
work into
question.
getting the right
Um,
people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think people do come, yeah, a lot of it comes from again my personal brand as well, like stuff I'm doing on LinkedIn and things like this. So people can resonate with that. So I think
Yeah.
people are coming looking for a bit of that like groundedness, like a bit more honesty. And so I think that does help cut through the noise a little bit. Um, but yeah, it's something I'd like to build on, you know, for sure, because I think it's really valuable and something that our clients could relate to and sort of embrace themselves, you know. Like, and that, like you said at the start, there's probably other things we could help these sales guys with. Yes, we help them get those conversational leads, but could it be we help them, you know, train them in terms of how to respond? Could it be helping them with their mindset and their well-being, etc.? There's
Yeah.
quite a lot of factors that make a good salesperson. I'm thinking of ideas of how else we could help them, you know. Because there's no point getting a great lead if your mindset's completely shot to pieces and you're struggling, you're stressed, you don't really want to speak to the prospect because you're you know, in a bad way, you know. So I think lots of factors that need to be in place for you to be successful in sales, right?
Yeah. I mean, in one sense, getting the lead is just the beginning, isn't it?
Exactly.
You know, I
Yeah,
mean, it's a
exactly.
hard bit, but once
Yeah,
you've crossed that Rubicon, as it were, you've then got a whole lot of other things that
exactly. You got to
you've got to,
respond right. You got to be
yeah,
proactive. You got to follow up with them. You got to know what you're talking about when you do speak to them. So many times when I was in sales, you'd work with an outsource agency or something, and they'd get you the lead, and the sales guys wouldn't do anything with it anyway. You know, they weren't capable of actually qualifying it properly. So you're right. It does start with a lead, but there's so many other things that need to be in place to help progress that, you know.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a complex game, sales, I think. Let me ask you about the kind of cultural. I'm thinking culture outside of your business.
Hmm.
I mean, I was talking to a bunch of business people the other day from the kind of Pakistani community, actually.
Hmm.
Um, really different. I mean, lovely bunch of people. I mean, a number of my friends are in that community, but they do things in a really different way to kind of if you like the white middle class, short, fat, grey haired old bloke kind of community that I come
Yeah.
from. If you, I mean, one of the things that's interesting about sales is that you deal with so many
Hmm.
different communities, both within the UK, in different countries.
Yeah.
What's your take on those kind of cultural nuances and
Mhm.
how you have to adjust what you do to accommodate people's different expectations? I mean, what's your
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
on that
Yeah,
stuff?
that's a really good point, I think. And obviously, most of the things we do are on LinkedIn. So we're teaching the salesperson, helping that sales individual to engage with the right prospects on LinkedIn. And most of our clients, probably 80% of them are in the UK, and it is, culturally it's quite, people are a bit sort of reserved sometimes. You need to be quite patient. But then we have other, clients which are in different regions, for example, and it's completely different. Like in Italy, for example, yeah, they do use LinkedIn, but they love to then pick up the phone straight away and have a chat. In the US, it's a bit more aggressive, a bit more direct, for example, but they're still happy to talk. Other regions, they like to, it's it's more like partner driven. So yeah, the vendor might reach out, but they like to speak to the local partners, etc. So we have to adjust the way we service our clients based on that. And because we're helping them with the messaging, the outreach, and the sort of approach they're taking, so we need to take that into account for
And
sure.
how do you do that though? Because it's one thing to say we'll take it into account. I mean, that's what I would say. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
necessarily know how to do it. I mean, if you
no,
take the example of Italy as a for instance,
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I don't speak Italian.
yeah.
I've been to Italy a few times and I love it. I love the
Beautiful.
food. I wouldn't know how to accommodate a bunch of Italian clients. I mean, what's your thoughts on how you develop that know-how? I mean, how have you
Yes.
developed that
So
know-how?
it's a case of the service we run, we work very closely with the client. It's a sort of done with you service. So we would
Right.
take examples of things that have worked for them in the past, other campaigns, other things that worked, the approach they're taking. We used to do a lot of this manually, so we would like then work with them on the messaging and build this out. We've now developed AI that we can actually based on the persona of the individual that's selling and the persona they're trying to target, we can then recommend the best approach that they should take. For example, we have sort of some large enterprise clients. If we got a large enterprise client, we got a really strong business development rep, like they really know what they're doing. They're really, focused, got a great LinkedIn profile. They know exactly who they're selling to. They can afford to be quite direct with their approach. They know who they want to talk to. They know the value proposition. There's no fluff and sort of like, hey, let's chat. Blah, blah. It's just like, this is what we do. We're helping other customers here. It'd be great to speak. And it really, really works for them.
Right.
Whereas if you're more of a junior sales rep, you just join, your company's not as well known, you need to take a different approach. It might be like, hey, I'm looking to build my network. I've just joined the company, and you need to take a softer, sort of more relationship building approach. So it's something over the last few years we developed, but now we're using AI to drive that so that when we onboard a client, they can choose the best approach to take. And that could be across different regions as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And are different, I mean, I hear a lot about. I mean, I heard something yesterday. Somebody saying, "I don't like AI generated stuff being sent to me." I
Yeah.
mean, are you getting that kind of reaction as AI becomes more prevalent? Are people kind of responding negatively to it, or do they? Is it a bit of a myth that they can tell whether things have been written by AI? Are they?
So
I mean, what's
yeah, I mean, I'm similar. Like, and one thing that really grinds my gears is the comments on LinkedIn, like the AI comments. I think if you're so lazy, you can't even write a comment and put your own view on it. I think just go off the platform.
yeah,
It's quite a strong view, but I think it's like that's the ultimate laziness, isn't it? So we're all using AI, we're all experimenting with AI. But my view, my philosophy on it is like it's for the back end side of things, right? We're using it in the back end, we're using it for the reporting, the data, the approach there. But the front, making sure that when the messages go out, we're always having a human review that, whether that's the first message, the follow up, etc. That is a human connection, especially with social selling. That can't be automated to that extent. So AI is very important, but you need to use it in the right places and don't overcook it. For example, you don't want to automate everything. It's gonna do more harm than good in that sense.
yeah. I mean, and you've made a really interesting point there about the AI and humans working together.
Hmm.
And my view is that that's probably the way forward. I mean, AI is good at some stuff, people are good at some other stuff.
Yeah,
What you probably want to do is get them working together in a way that adds value,
yeah.
collectively. Very easy to say, much more difficult to do. What's your take on that kind of people and AI working together bit? Is it about where it's at in the process, in the journey? Is it about kind of people saying this is how I can use it? I mean, what's your
Mhm.
take on how those things are best welded together?
Yeah, I think I've yeah put a lot of thought into this actually, and that I've been to a few. Went to an AI conference in Oxford, and sort of I'm sort of trying to learn around this. And I think the challenge I think most companies are finding are that exactly that. They've tried AI trying to do everything and realize actually we do need humans to do some of this. So the
Mm.
people they're going to be hiring are the ones that are really good at what they do, but they're also really good with AI, or want to learn and use AI. And at the moment, where we are now, 2026, is there's not really a defined, one platform or one thing that's going to work. You have to be the sort of person that can experiment with different tools and different processes. So I think a lot of companies are looking for that individual. If you're a salesperson, it's somebody that you're a really good salesperson, you can qualify, you can prospect, but you also know how to use AI to work on the right data, help you with a proposal, like use AI in the right way. So I think that's you're totally right in that sense. I think it's the people that want to embrace it and learn about it, they're going to be the ones that are most valuable. And if you look at companies like Salesforce and some of these bigger companies, yes, they've made a lot of layoffs in terms of their, teams because they're automated with AI, but they're hiring salespeople, so a lot of companies are doing that, so but they're the salespeople that are really, really, really good, but they can also embrace AI, know how to use AI, and know the value proposition of selling AI.
Yeah, and I think I mean it's a very interesting point you've made there. I think also it's probably going to evolve over time as AI evolves, and
Yeah.
as we work out how to work together with AI, that whole thing's going to evolve. I mean, my whichever way AI shakes down, I think it's going to be an interesting few years.
Yeah.
Um, well, let me just ask you a bit about the kind of business journey that you've been on. When you look back on the journey that you've been on with Trueleads, I mean, were there any particular, I call them inflection points, that's maybe
Hmm.
not the right, but points where you came to a fork in the road and you said, do I go there or do I go there? I
Hmm.
mean, have you had moments like that? And, have they always gone right or have you sometimes gone down the wrong road? I mean, what's your,
Yeah, I think the first year or so was like I said, it was founded in lockdown. It was sort of driven a little bit by fear and ego and sort of like just wanted I've always wanted to have my own business, so but it was born in a time of sort of that sort of fear and uncertainty within lockdown, but so it was sort of survival mode and getting it going. And then within that, that sort of founder's journey, you get a lot of distractions. It's like I could go back into employment or could start this business, do that. There was a lot of that. So the first inflection point was probably that. I think a year and a half in, there was an opportunity to go back into the sales world. I joined as VP of sales and went down there, tried to run True Leads on the side, etc. But realized that True Leads was really at the point where it needed me to focus on it. So I actually quit the job. It was a really good salary, all the rest of it. Quit, went it all in on True Leads, and at that time really started growing the business. That I think that was the major one because I sort of felt that product market fit. It was a year or so of experimenting, but a year and a half, and it's like this is really working. Like this is worth giving up a corporate job for. So focus on that, and then I think.
a big
Sure.
decision? That sounds like a
Yeah, it
big
was a
decision.
massive decision. I think, yeah, in lockdown, I lost my job. I got made redundant, and that was to me a sign of like, yes, this is a chance to set up your business, Tom. That's one thing, and that was, brave thing to do, I think. But a year and a half in, when you go and secure a, proper VP of sales job for somebody I knew, big cyber vendor, and could run the business on the side, I was like, this is perfect scenario. But my heart wasn't in it. My heart was just not in the job. I wanted to build the business, so that was the probably the biggest inflection point because it was like recommitting to what I had built. And then I think along the road, there's probably been many in terms of the direction of the business. Whether to focus just on LinkedIn, whether we go down, building out telemarketing or email or data, building our own platform. There's been lots of different things around that. And again, probably to your question around where to focus, over the time, I've learned that that sounds good, but I'll park that for now. We'll focus on here. And I think we're on the right path now, but you have to learn to adjust and adapt, especially with the AI and things that are coming up. You just have to do that quicker than before.
Yeah.
So it's
I
probably
mean,
been a
that's
number of them. Yeah,
I think AI is accelerating all those things, is making them happen
exactly.
quicker, which makes it
Yeah.
tricky.
And
Yeah.
I think the start of last year, you could see it coming and you're thinking, it's obviously going to change a lot. And already the business was moving quite fast. The market we were in was moving quite fast with automation and things, but now it's accelerating further. So I think you've either really got to embrace that, embrace the sort of uncertainty of that, or do something else because I think it's not going to change. That's the world we're in now, isn't it? So I think the companies that are going to survive and thrive are the ones that are going to embrace that and really go with it.
Yeah. There's a famous saying that what cannot be avoided must be welcomed. I think it's one of
Well,
those.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Let me ask you about your journey. I mean, when you look back on the journey that you've been on, I mean, what would you say what are the big things that you've learnt along the way? Have you
Uh,
changed a lot?
Massively, yeah, hugely. I think, yeah, like before True Leads, I was in sales, like I said, and there was certain bits I really, really, really loved about it. It was a good career. I traveled, I earned good money, but my heart was never really in it. I always wanted to set my own thing. So I think what's changed is flipping from, being a sales rep, like we said right at the start, and being that sort of egocentric, fear-driven sales guy that's going to do whatever it takes to go and close business. You close the deal, move on, like that sort of, you hit your target, go to President's Club, that sort of mindset, to then being a leader, a business leader, and bringing people on board. And I think what I've learned massively is, and I'm very grateful for the fact that, I can sell because that's got True Leads to where it is, but to build and grow and, manage and lead a company requires many different skills. So
Mm.
I've although the sales piece is still the bit that I focus on and the bit I enjoy the most, I've had to learn about systems and operations and HR and
Mm.
marketing and all these other skills which I have levels of interest in, but you have to have a broad spectrum of skills to be able to set up a business and grow a business. So
And do you feel your experience as a salesperson has helped you be a better CEO? I mean,
uh, without doubt, without yeah,
and why?
100%.
Why would you say that? I mean,
I
what's
think
driving that?
well, personally, I think it's probably the most, if not the most important skill, because if it was the other way around and the sales was like one of my weaker points, where we had a really great product, but couldn't sell it. I mean,
Yeah.
and you see so many founders like that. They might be more technical founder, might have this fantastic product. They spent years building this really cool tool, but they don't have a clue how to get it to market. They haven't got a business, they've got a product,
Yeah.
So I think it's I'm really thankful for that because I've been able to use my network that I had from my sales days, get the business going, build upon that. And there's obviously still a lot of learning to go, but I think that has been fundamental to the success of True Leads for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably true to say that most successful founders have got the ability to sell somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
as you said,
definitely.
it's very, it's great to have a great product, but if you can't sell it,
Yeah,
not,
exactly.
you've either got to get somebody in to sell it or you've got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
And when you look back on that journey, if if you were knowing what you know now, what one thing would you have liked to have known that, what would you like to have been different when you started, given what you know now? What would be the thing that you would change if you were going back to square one?
I think if I was going back to square one, I think I'd be more patient for success. I think I
Because
think
why do you say that?
because I think sometimes you're in that sort of flow of you want to grow and you're fast and you're looking at other people and you're trying to grow to this amount of revenue and you get caught in that loop and you're doing everything it takes, and at the same time you're doing that, you're ignoring what's right in front of you, which is your existing customers, your existing network. So I would build things a lot slower, and when you get the customer, like really look after them, make sure they're solid, then the next one, then next one, and then higher, slower. Just do everything a bit slower, a bit more patient, a bit more focused, because I think you would build the foundations more quicker. Because of what happens if you don't do that is you do grow, but then you have to take a big step back, like you said, around the staff, the employees, like maybe let some people go, step back, rebuild again, go back. But I think if you're more patient, you would build something that's a bit stronger from the start.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, most CEOs that I speak to are always like they're never happy about the speed.
No,
Things
you're
are
never
never
going to be
going
happy, are you?
fast
No,
enough.
no, no. And I guess that's it. I guess the other thing, Paul, is that, like I said, from an early age, I always wanted to build a business. And then I was like, great, I've got a business. But there's obviously lots of different types of businesses that you can build. And I think that's something that has shifted. We spoke last week, that has shifted. And when those people that came to help us, the mentors and people you meet along the way, a lot of them are, maybe you're thinking too small, maybe we need investment, maybe we could do this, do that. And then there's a part of you that could be like, hey, this could be a really lean team, like a solopreneur type business and manage it myself. And then you've got to weigh up your own ambitions with the reality of your life. I've got a young family, etc., and work out what it is you really want. Because looking back now, I can't think of anything worse than having like fly around the world and have loads of investors and have all that pressure when I've got a young family that a few miles around down the road that I'm supporting and got a business that works for them and the people I work with that it's a bit, more wholesome, I guess. So it's trying to, you can easily build a business that you don't want, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not careful.
Yeah, no, I've heard other people say that. It's having a business can be great. Having an empire can be great, but not always.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Got to be
and
careful. Yeah, you can easily build something you resent and that traps
yeah.
you. So
Yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, I've spoken to lots of
yeah,
CEOs that get to the point where I've had enough. I've just got to get out, and they
yeah,
try
yeah,
and sell it and what have
yeah,
you because it's just too much, and that's it's an easy trap to fall into, I think.
yeah,
And in terms of one of the other things I think is I like about working with entrepreneurs is that they're much more open about failure. And
mhm,
I think it's because, if you're building a business, if something doesn't work, you need to fix it. And if
yeah,
you don't fix it, you'll have an even bigger problem. So they're
yeah,
more open about that. Whereas
mhm,
I've worked in the public sector earlier in my career that, a lot of people there pretend that everything's going fine when it
yeah,
clearly isn't.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, so I like working with entrepreneurs because they're open about kind of dealing with problems, recognizing failure, moving on quickly,
mhm.
building on the lessons that they've learned. I mean, when you look back on your journey, is that you? Do you feel you've got better at doing that as you become, a better
Yeah.
CEO, running a bigger business?
Yeah, I think so. I think early in my career, probably not at all. Like, I think that
Yeah.
was seen as a real, failure. And there was, especially when I was much younger, that would have been seen as really bad. I think that again, that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
You listen to like the US podcasts and things. It's all about failing fast and thing. It's a very British thing, isn't it? Like you failed, oh, you really messed up here. But running the business, I think it's not trying to strive for perfection. It's just trying to get things done and get things going. And you have to learn to fail and learn and adjust quickly. So it's something you have to embrace, I think. You can't really get away from it because stuff will go wrong and it won't work. And you have to just move on and not let it consume you. So absolutely. And before, yeah, in the sales game, it was probably something I've shied away from. Like if a deal slipped or something, you'd really beat yourself up about it. But now you have to go through that to learn what to do next time. So it's part of the journey, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark Zuckerberg said recently, why would we shy away from failure when failure is how we learn? Or so he said
Yeah,
something like that, and I
yeah,
think
yeah,
there's a lot of truth to that.
yeah.
You know,
Exactly. I think it's just sort of culturally in Britain, it's seen as something really bad and something you should avoid, whereas in America, it's seen as something you should go and strive to do, right? So
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not to say it's not without its costs sometimes. And I've done some pretty
yeah,
stupid things over the years. And you think, well, I wish I hadn't done that. I mean, I've learned from it, but I wish I hadn't done
yeah.
it in the first place.
I guess the ultimate failure is if you just give up. I guess if that,
Yeah.
or I don't know, if you let it consume you so much that you don't try and fix it. But if you learn from it and move on, yeah, you might fail, but you've moved on. So it's sort of a different mindset, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think Muhammad Ali famously said, you don't lose a fight by getting knocked over. You lose a fight by staying down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Kind of same thing that you're
getting up.
saying.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is a mindset thing, that willingness to kind of get up and get back into the,
Yeah, because
that's a mindset thing. And being motivated and determined and all
yeah,
that sort of stuff, which is partly what makes the kind of entrepreneurial community such a great place to be, I think.
yeah.
Um, and in terms of advice, if you were to offer some advice to a rookie CEO starting out on a journey like yours, I mean, what would you be saying to them?
Wow, a lot of the stuff we discussed really around, I guess, around the team, around taking things slower, those sort of things was resonate. But I'd say I don't know, play to your strengths is probably be one. I think that's
Yeah.
something that is really important because everyone's different in different ways.
Can I
I
just pick
think,
that up? Because that's a very interesting point. But when I was young, I didn't really have a clear sense of what I was good at and I
yeah, I
wasn't
guess
good at.
so.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm at the end of my career now, and I know because I look back that some
yeah,
things I've done well and some things I've consistently not done well.
yeah,
So I've got a clearer idea of my strengths and weaknesses. When you're young, how do you know what your strengths and weaknesses are? I mean, how do you figure that out? How did you
yeah.
figure out what
Well, I've
your
got that
strengths
with my
and weaknesses?
kids at the moment. My eldest is picking his GCSEs and things, and I was like, mate, you got to pick something you at least got some enjoyment of. I guess, yeah, like maybe you're not good at it, but you enjoy it because
Yeah.
that's going to get you through the hard times. And I love doing this. Like even the challenging times, there's never been a day I've woken up, in the corporate world, there would be times on a Sunday night you're like dreading to go to work.
Yeah.
But when since doing this, there hasn't been that. And I think maybe it's that enjoyment. Maybe it's something that
Yeah.
not all the stuff I'm good at, but there's a few bits you're good at, but it's stuff you enjoy. Like, I enjoy speaking to people, I enjoy sales, I enjoy marketing, I enjoy helping our clients go on that journey. So maybe it's that, like maybe not necessarily finding something you're good at, but something you're passionate about. And
And I guess if you enjoy it, you're probably going to get good at it.
yeah, exactly. And there's going to be lots of things, like you said, like especially when you make it more boring, there's going to be loads of stuff you don't enjoy. Sometimes it's not particularly exciting, but you still enjoy the process of where you're going. So pick something of that because I think that's the only thing that's going to get you through the hard times is if you pick something that you generally enjoy and are passionate about.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think wise words, I would suggest there. Tom, thank you for taking a bit of time out. Thank you for
No
sharing
worries.
that
It's fun.
journey. I mean, absolutely fascinating. I really appreciate you sharing those insights because I think, as you said, I mean, sales is such an important part of business
Yeah,
that understanding how it works and getting it to work for your business, whatever that
yeah,
business might be, is pretty important. And I think
yeah.
you've shared some really valuable insights there. So I really appreciate that. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for having me. Cheers, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, see you soon. Bye bye.
Yeah, mate.